to what was formerly called Rob Reacts. It is now going to be called Rob's Ramblings and Reactions. Basically, I changed it because I found out over the weekend that there's a channel that's got about 100,000 plus subscribers that's called Big Rob Reacts. So I was like, yeah, my video series, the name's a bit too close. So, hence, we are now going to be calling this Rob's Rambles and Reactions, and then colon, the subject, which of course means the titles are going to be even longer than they already were, and they're pretty damn long to begin with. Also, the subject matter of which I'm going to discuss has me mentioning some quotes and opinions by Patrick Gerard. Disclosure, I am friends with Patrick, or at least I consider I'm friends with him. I mean, we've talked quite a bit about comic book industry and stuff, and we're Facebook friends, and we've known each other for a couple of years via the net and through various different message boards. So I consider him a friend, and so yeah, just want to get that out of the way, and now cue that newly branded musicless intro. Or is it this way? I'm not going to do a swipe. Screw it. Just go to the intro. Alright, and we're back. Not from an advertisement, but just from the intro thingy. So, what am I going to be talking about? I'm going to be talking about the fact that Archie is doing a Kickstarter. Not a Kickstarter for something that you would think, you know, that would be hard to sell, like, or at least would be perceived to be a niche, whatever you pronounce, kind of comic. No, it's not something like Afterlife with Archie. No, it's a reboot of the mainline Archie books that will be written by Mark Waid and drawn by Fiona Staples. Those of you who don't know, Mark Waid is pretty much, you know, really big name in comics, having written comics such as Kingdom Come and a really important Flash run in the 90s, pretty big. He ended up, you know, doing a lot of different stuff, and just wiki him. You know, I don't have to spend my whole day explaining that Mark Waid is a big deal to be writing Archie. Fiona Staples co-created and illustrates the Image comic Saga, which is, I believe, probably the second highest comic that the Image is selling. Probably, I think it's second to Walking Dead, and maybe number one, I don't know. Again, internets, you're like, why are you acting like you basically don't know anything? It's like, because that's not what the important thing about this. What's important is Archie has decided that for this new reboot that they're doing with Mark Waid and Fiona Staples, they're going to do a Kickstarter. Now, I don't have any problem with big publishers using Kickstarters. If it's for projects that maybe they otherwise might not feel would be successful outside of, you know, a Kickstarter. Like, for instance, if DC said, hey, we're going to do a Kickstarter where it's a team-up miniseries between Cassandra Cain and Spoiler. Okay, I could see the methodology in that, and I would be okay. And if in Archie's case, if before they did Afterlife with Archie, they had said, hey, we're going to do this as a Kickstarter. Okay, cool. But when it's the mainline book, this is like if DC decided that when they did the New 52, that we're like, hey, we really want to do a Kickstarter for, you know, the upcoming Grant Morrison Action Comics reboot. People would think that's kind of crazy, right? But then again, rebooting Archie is kind of crazy. I mean, it really has no continuity. So, you know, it seems like insane, but here is my speculation. This is nobody else's opinion that I know of, but my speculation is this. Archie's actually known to be very thrifty when it comes to paying comic book creators. So you would think, why would, you know, creators like Mark Waid and Fiona Staples work on an Archie comic then? If the pay is pretty low in comparison to, say, Marvel or DC. Or even if in Fiona Staples' case, she probably would be making more money just continuing to draw Saga. Well, that's probably why they did Kickstarter. They probably are offering the two of them probably a better rate than they would regular, people. Like, just off the top of my head, Tom DeFalco, Ron Friends, who have gone to do Archie Comics stuff since their stream of work for Marvel and DC has kind of, evaporated, particularly after the cancellation of the last Spider-Girl series. So, that's possibly, I'm not saying that is, it's not been reported that that's what the Kickstarter is for. If it isn't, then really, there's no reason to do a Kickstarter for a mainland Archie book that's being rebooted. There really isn't. And this obviously, and ironically, this is of course making a lot of comic book retailers mad. Very, very mad. Especially when it was announced that, I believe, it was either Kmart, Target, it was one of the bigger, said, yes, we will hold this. And they're like, really? So you're doing a Kickstarter even though you've already basically said, this is going to be sold in certain stores, blah, 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 and it's sort of a done deal. And of course you get in Dennis Barger, I believe that's, how his last name's pronounced, just going like, aha! Screw you, Mark Waid, because of course he always has to have some big fight with Mark Waid. For those of you who don't know who Dennis Barger is, he's a kind of a enfant tabli comic book retailer. I guess I'm screwing up the pronunciation of enfant tabli. He basically is like a rebel rouser who just seems to like to court controversy, and particularly doing so by attacking Mark Waid. So, of course, Mark Waid being attached to this Archie project, which is being done as a Kickstarter, of course he was going to come in. So, what are, like, my real opinions on this? Like I said, I honestly don't feel that this is the kind of project that would have worked, that a major publisher should have done for Kickstarter. I feel that projects on Kickstarter, even if they're done by major corporations like Archie, or if in the case of, like, say when there was the Veronica Mars movie, that movie probably wouldn't have made at all had that Kickstarter not happened. It was a small niche thing that by doing a Kickstarter, the company felt like, okay, we can handle this. Same thing would have happened if, say, Archie decided, again, keep going to Archie Afterlife. If that was the Kickstarter instead. But when you're doing a mainland book, this is just kind of insane. Now, like I said earlier, I'm going to be discussing Patrick Gerard's own opinion, and these pretty much follow what I pretty much believe in. So, I'm just going to read them off of my phone. So let me do that. So what? Stupid. I have to reload it. I might just do a jump. Waiting. This. Come on. I should have thought more into this, should I? This is going to end up being probably my longest video, purely because this thing won't... Okay. Found it. There are different disputes here. There's one over Archie being the ones to seek the funding, and if they're too big to do this. I don't care much about this. Again, same here, Patrick, same here. There's one over the reward structure. I think it's a little tacky. So that's what Patrick said. I really haven't looked into the reward structure of it so far, so I really have no opinion on that, because I'm not been informed on that. But Patrick seems to think it's tacky. To continue, there's one over them bypassing retailers. I don't see any issue with this. Retailers who feel like it's their job to promote books or publishers work out and who talk about partnership a lot strike me as people who have suckered themselves into an abusive relationship with big publishers. And it's an abusive relationship they guilt their abusers into staying in. Just an ugly mess. That seems pretty reasonable. But, I might hedge it a bit. I have to rethink No, I pretty much agree with that. Yeah. There's another dispute over them funding very commercial books they would have made anyway, and which they may be releasing at mass retail. The last one is my main issue, and is also my main issue. Kickstarter lets you transfer risk without sacrificing equity. I think there has been a failure to explain why not just mainstream, but exceedingly mainstream books need or should get a risk transfer like this. The Fox, Afterlife with Archie, prior to launch, those would have made sense for Kickstarter. So I'm going to skip a little bit and back to, because he kind of has more examples. So about the next paragraph. What I don't get is trying to transfer risk for your least risky project. I'm not going to even say that my beef with it, because beef would make it sound like I was legitimately angry with Archer. That's my qualm, my quibble. I kind of agree. It's really not something to be angry about, it's just more to be annoyed. To continue. Now I am a little ticked at Kickstarter for failing to hold their line on not being a store, for not improving tools around some of the most common problems with campaigns, for not doing everything they can to improve and brand themselves as a platform. And those problems are present in every project, but they are more visibly compounded on the big projects. This project would not be quite the way it is if Kickstarter was more hands-on with their platform branding. Not Archie's fault, though. That's Kickstarter's. And that's pretty much what I kind of agree with. Semi. The only caveat I have is I feel that Archie doesn't have any blame. You know, that they don't have any blame. And that's all up on Kickstarter to sort of facilitate these things in a way that these crazy situations don't happen. I do feel that there's a bit on Archie, but do agree that pretty much, at least Kickstarter holds most of the blame, and they shouldn't be as hands-off when you're dealing with a big company doing a Kickstarter like this. Well, that's pretty much my opinion. So, this has been Rob's Ramblings and Reactions. I am Rob Webb, a.k.a. William Robert Webb, a.k.a. Tetsuo the Great, a.k.a. Tetsuo Man. Have a pleasant day, people. Man, I can barely talk anymore. My throat's so dry from talking. Again, end.